Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to talk more about Battlebots because I just love it. I just got done watching the first half of the bracket for top 32. Now we have like the half for the Sweet 16. So yeah, let's just talk about the fights and stuff like that, what I got right, what I got wrong, and stuff like that for at least half of my predictions here. And we'll definitely talk about the other half whenever that episode comes up, and I'll probably do likely do the same thing. So let's go from the bottom up, just because I think it really is appropriate of where it leads and stuff like that. So first off, this one was one of the tougher ones to call for me. I just thought, just because these two came from the same team, they had some sort of like connections with each other and sort of like knowing each other's like driving styles and all that stuff. And plus, Claw Viper was very fast this year. I think this was like the best performance yet for Claw Viper. It went out on a rather good note, I would say, because it wasn't knocked down or anything like that. It wasn't utterly destroyed, but in the end, Claw Viper did lose. Now, Kevin, I believe his name, uh, did try to appeal it. He did have that appeal in his pocket. We can't forget about that, right? People will still have their appeals in their pockets. Some of them anyway, not all of them. And he used it. I don't blame him for it. I thought he, put it the most respectful as possible of why he, used the appeal. He just wanted to make sure that, everything was legit and all that stuff. He did say it later on that, the fog of the match or whatever made him forget that, well, he was flipped over and all that stuff. So, it happens. When you're in the heat of the moment, you kind of tend to like forget stuff, or, something just kind of flies over your head until after it's all over. So you definitely, that's when, of course, your head is clear and all that stuff. You're so in the moment that you just kind of don't realize what's really in front of you at times. So that happens. But yes, credit goes to, of course, Team MadCatter to pull out the victory. They definitely put some good hits, but it's not to also say that Claw Viper had good moments either. They definitely had good moments of control. They were flipping them up and popping them up and whatever, using their speed to their advantage once again to really spin up, or had Team MadCatter's heads kind of spinning around for a little bit, and there was some collisions to the walls and everything. But there was a moment where MadCatter was upside down, and it kind of looked shaky there for a moment. But the self-rider was working luckily, and they were able to get themselves back up. And MadCatter was able to land those really key hits, while Claw Viper unfortunately got its, I think, the top of the claw all mangled up and chewed off, in fact. So that was the turn of the tide, essentially. The moment the tables were turning was that moment, I believe, and they kind of just got the momentum at that point. And as soon as MadCatter was able to flip them over, they kind of just like kept them there essentially, and that, I think, was the winning sort of moment for them, for the match. Now, again, MadCatter did, Cloud Viper, excuse me, put up a great fight with that control. So that's why it wasn't a unanimous decision; it was a split decision. But in the end, MadCatter won it. So great job to Martin Mason once again. Of course, credit goes to Calvin Eba and the rest of the team members, of course, for keeping up MadCatter to up in shape, and of course the driving of Mr. Eba. So. Of course, Martin Mason for keeping it all together, like keeping the team together. Of course, operating, I believe, the weapons, I think, or something to that extent. And then, unfortunately, Gassy Cat, I think it's called, did not come out of that in one piece. So, unfortunately for the mini bot, but MadCatter won it. So that's pretty much all that matters. So, so I got that right at least. Huge versus Scorpios. I thought this was a little more even than I thought. I thought Huge was actually going to destroy Scorpios, but not before Scorpios landed some hits to the balance bars, or pretty much like the bars to prevent them from like completely go capside or anything like that, because the wheels are so big that if they like just didn't have anything there, and if they get flipped over to the side, they're screwed pretty much, unless they can like pull off some sort of miracle with the balancing and all the, well, pretty much gyrating themselves back to the right side. But they did knock off those bars, but that wasn't really, enough really to kill the momentum of Huge this season. I think Huge has been very, very dominant. It turns out, hey, I mean, if you put more time into practicing the robot and stuff like that, you get results and stuff. As Jonathan Schultz, I believe, put it best. So, you just gotta put the time into, those areas, and you don't have to go back to the drawing board like that. You just gotta really know your robot, what you're working with, and that, I believe, was the key, and it's one of the major keys anyway, to really have this momentum here for this season for Huge. So good on them for making this thus far in that fashion, really. They landed that really key big hit, and it essentially shut down, besides the wheel and everything, but the hit, that one hit just really shut down Scorpios. I think they caught on fire or something like that, but it just definitely knocked them out. They hit hard. Their weapon is effective. They got the shape for it. They got the height, and of course the weapon. Most importantly, of that moment, was working, and it just really, 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 really was all the great components to winning that fight in that fashion against Scorpios anyway. So they made it into the Sweet 16. I think this is the first time in a while. I could be wrong on that one, or my memory is foggy on that one. But here we are with Huge going into the Sweet 16. So congrats on that. Next fight with Bloodsport and Lockjaw. This one was the one I got wrong. I think that this is the only one I got wrong. But you know what I said? I said, Donald Hudson, please prove me if I'm wrong, because I really like you. Or something to that extent. Please prove me that I'm wrong. And you know what? The thing is that I actually predicted right in a way, because Lockjaw did or Donald Hudson did bring out the big butt for Lockjaw. He used that big metal plate, shock mounted, all that stuff, to really control the fight against Bloodsport. Now, of course, granted, Bloodsport did land some very, very nearly fatal hits, especially to the tires, all that stuff. They even knocked out some tire at some point, and they're on their way to knocking out another tire. But unfortunately, the weapon caught on fire, or the motor caught on fire, so maybe the power wasn't there for the weapon of itself, but the self-rider was definitely wrecked at that point too. So something definitely went wrong in the top half of that component, or that component. So either the weapon wasn't just powerful enough, or the self-rider just was completely gone, or something to that extent. But even with that said, though, the weapon was still hitting hard enough to rock Lockjaw quite a bit. But there was that key moment where Bloodsport could have just played it out, waited a little bit for sort of Lockjaw to hang himself, essentially. And it could have overheated because of the motors heating up due to lopsided wheels. The wheels were already dented, so it would heat up those wheels, or those motors, and probably would have caught smoke or something. It created smoke, overheated the robot from that moment, and that could have been the key to hit him at that moment. But they're too tenacious, they're too greedy, I think, or too thirsty for those hits. They just went in and they popped themselves up. Lockjaw still have enough power or endurance rather, along with that power, I think, to pop them up, and it popped them just right at those right moments to flip over Bloodsport in favor of Lockjaw. So those key sort of moments kind of just happened to play for Lockjaw's favor, and that's what really was key to Lockjaw's victory. It was, I think, just that sense of patience, or rather a lack of patience from Team Bloodsport. And I can understand. Those moments happen. Like, you really want to knock out your opponent, get get um get at them, especially with those big wheels just being exposed like that. There's just juicy targets, but you cannot count out on Donald Hudson's great experience dealing with many drivers, right? He probably knew that these young drivers were going to be impatient at some point, and he was kind of, I felt like he was counting on it. This is, of course, all my guesses and stuff like that. That's how I kind of see things. It felt like he was counting on that for that to happen. Something like that would happen, and it played out, in his favor. Though he said all that stuff didn't play out the way he did or he thought was going to happen. But definitely the big metal plate was definitely key to protecting him throughout the fight, really. So definitely experience, defensive driving, and just like, a bit, of course, a sprinkle of luck definitely played into Lockjaw's favor. Not to discredit, the experience and skill that Hudson has accumulated over the years. And that is why also, like, always much kudos to drivers like Donald Hudson for just having that time, having that patience, having the experience, of course, to be patient with these drivers. These bot builders. I'm pretty sure he's faced a number of young people in his lifetime in robot combat, and has seen this played out quite a few times, maybe. And that's what happened with Bloodsport. They just were too thirsty, and they just went in when they should have waited for Lockjaw to, well, get Lockjaw essentially. So they should have waited for Lockjaw to sort of like heat up, and stay on him. But kind of went in a little too fast, too soon, and it really cost him that. So the captain, I believe, was just very upset with himself to let that happen. So I think this was, while the components were catching on fire, it definitely is more on the user side, that it was a user error, unfortunately. And it's what happens, man. It's not common. I don't want to say common, but it does occur quite a bit in these sort of sports. That tenacity from the youth does get the best of them at times. Okay, so enough about that. Lockjaw wins, so I'm gonna leave it as is, just so that we can like do another video about the Sweet 16 going into top 8 predictions and stuff like that, and just to keep that in reference. But yes, I did get this wrong, but I think it's a pretty soft loss, because I figured that he put Donald Hudson has the experience on his side, and he would bring out, well, the big metal plate on the butt. So let's go on to Witch Doctor and Jackpot. This was looking pretty even throughout the fight, and but in the end, Witch Doctor was really able to, well, go weapon to weapon, as the driver for Witch Doctor, Mike Galately, I think his name is. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. It's probably gonna be a meme at some point, but he doesn't want to go weapon to weapon, but then later he goes weapon to weapon at some point, and to help engage what is going on with Jackpot. What are sort of like, what is the current sort of state of the impression from Team Jackpot in that moment. And I felt like they were confident enough to just hit him. And they took out the self-rider. They were just hitting him hard. And it was just all Witch Doctor from there, from what I can remember. But you do have to give it to Jackpot for being that durable, despite being mangled up until the end. But it took them to be really mangled up to be completely KO'd. But it is also to say, of course, that Witch Doctor is looking really good too, as well as the other robots in this season. So It makes us all the more sense that Witch Doctor did win this one. They looked really good. But it's not to take any credit away from Jackpot for making it this far. But in the end, Witch Doctor was just landing those really clean hits, and destruction was to be had. That was pretty much it for that one. So I got this one right at least. Copperhead and Rotator. This was quite the sort of this went to judge's decision. I do remember that, and Copperhead definitely put out some big hits too, like I kind of predicted. But Rotator definitely put up a good fight too, as better as I felt. And again, they took it to the full 3 minutes, judge's decision, I believe. And Rotator did get some hits on Copperhead, but I felt like they missed a couple key opportunities. But I don't want to go through the replay or anything like that, just for the sake of the copyright stuff. So, but what I can remember right on top of my head, these two did put up a great fight. Full match, full 3 minutes and everything. But in the end, Copperhead took that one, which I did predict right. So at least I got that one right. But kudos to Rotator for making it this far and putting up a fight before going out. So quite the fight there. Oh man, this one was juicy. This one was quite the match here. This was a slugfest, as a lot of people were saying. This was a fight between two champions, Tantrum, the most recent one, and of course Endgame from the past. Endgame, other than the fork disaster against Ripperoni, was looking real solid. Tantrum was a little shaky because of a lot of issues, unfortunately, were coming up, including the lack of the self-right. And they did put that plate on the back so that the chain won't snap on the self-right, but unfortunately, that did not serve anything in their favor, I guess, because Endgame was just on top of the game. Now, of course, Tantrum was putting up a great fight, putting up some great hits, but as soon as the forks were being torn off, that was just when the tables were turning. That was the table turning moment for Endgame's favor, and they just went at it and just hit him, and took out the eye and everything, and they were just mangled up, But surprisingly, they were durable. That given that shape and everything, took a lot of hits, and despite that though, Endgame won it, so, as I kind of predicted in the end. But it was definitely hard to say how it exactly went, and it definitely was a slugfest, though. It definitely was indeed. So, with now Hypershock and Lucky, this one was, this could have, been going to either robot, but the whiffs from Lucky were very costly, because every time it whiffed, the arm got hit, and it's tricky, right? Obviously, it's definitely difficult to try to get those flips, and especially against a fast robot like Hypershock. So, yeah, but every one of those whiffs were very fatal hits, and it was to the point where it got hit and bent up the arm, and that was just, it was over, I would say, for Lucky. In my eyes. It kept hitting him, and Hypershock, had that control in the later half. Now, yes, let's not try to forget that Lucky did flip him early on. So it looked like, yes, it looked like Lucky had the upper hand at the moment, but Hypershock luckily was able to self-right with the wall rather quickly, and that was like kind of one of the key moments to the favor of Hypershock. Unfortunately, Lucky just wasn't able to, stay on Hypershock well enough. As soon as Hypershock was able to self-right, it didn't just like flip him back over or anything like that. Hypershock made it through, hit him, and shoved him around essentially. So, but Lucky survived the 3 minutes. So the credit is there for enduring for that long. It was still moving by the end. It looked mangled up, yes, but it was especially with the beak and everything. The flipping arm was all bent up and everything, but it endured it. So, but of course, in the end, the winner was Hypershock, and glad to see Hypershock kind of like going through the season in that sort of fashion. I think yeah. So I think the only memorable loss was definitely with Sawblaze, with that big stuck on the bottom, so bad that they had to like really pry it out post match. So that was pretty funny, but despite that, they are definitely performing well in this season too. So definitely kudos to them as well. They definitely were able to take that W on that one. So I got that prediction right in the end. So yeah, with only one wrong, which was Bloodsport. But hey, I mean, I kind of made the right predictions of what would happen, stuff like that at least. So it really goes to show that anything can happen. Like even if you have this like powerful robot, this deadly robot, the unexpected can happen, and have the other robot that's quite a little more delicate win that kind of fight. Unfortunately, that wasn't so much with Riptide versus Shatter. I did predict, yes, Riptide would win it, but unfortunately, controversy follows Team Riptide again, because there's that thing with the Calvin Eba and the team about the whole like, oh, the copying each other type of thing, or you copied from my Beetleweight robot and just scaled it up, blah blah blah. Probably the least of the controversies we saw. There was one with Ethan's behavior with Martin Mason during the interview, and then you have the sort of the overkill that happened with Captain Shredderator. There's been stuff floating around with the pit, as confirmed by Adam Wrigley during the post-match show, and he pretty much like confirmed it. Like rumors were floating around. People like to just like talk stuff about Riptide because of what appears to be their behavior being not favorable to a lot of teams in the pit. They seemingly were modifying something backstage or whatever, or after the weigh-in, which apparently I did not know this, but it does make sense that you're not supposed to modify your robot after the weigh-in. If your robot is going to be 250 pounds, your robot is going to be 250 pounds, right? And they saw one of their teammates from Team Shatter saw that happen, or one of the team members from Team Shatter saw that happen. So of course they're gonna react something to that extent. And when they saw that it was 2 pounds lighter, they were just like, wait, what's going on here? So they wanted to really make sure that they weren't really cheating or anything like that. So they had them, do testing and stuff like that. They passed the testing, but Ethan, one of them, was definitely not happy with how they're like looked at or being treated or whatever. So they took that to the match. They took that sort of ferocity to really mangle them up, and not before calling it paranoia. And Riptide really just torn things up on Shatter, but Shatter actually endured a lot more than I thought. Like, I thought the whole Omni Wheel thing would just fail right off the bat, but they did their best. They got a couple of hits on Riptide, but it just wasn't enough because of how hard Riptide hits. That power just cannot be denied, right? Controversies aside, that power is so just scary, man. Like I've been saying, this robot is so scary, man. It's been dominating all the fights. There's Huge, and then there's Riptide, right? Like, it's just nasty, So we can't definitely take that away from that, and that's what got them to win. But he really, Ethan, and I guess the rest of the team, well, but of course for sure, particularly Ethan, had to rub salt on that wound or squirt lemon juice on the wound, however the saying goes, by calling it, paranoia isn't gonna stop us from blah 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 blah. And of course, Adam wasn't gonna take that lightly, so he didn't give him the handshake when Ethan put out his hand for the handshake. I don't blame him for it. And to it's like it's definitely insulting in some way. It definitely is downplaying somebody because of how they would react, right? And I think Adam and his team reacted naturally for the most part, and he, made it clear that he doesn't want cheaters and stuff like that happen in a sport like this. It's, he loves the sport. He wants the fights to be fair as possible. So that's only fair. I mean, I think that's a logical sort of way to go about it. And so for Team Riptide to act like that, I think should be looked at, right? And I think there definitely is some sort of connection with all the stuff that has been happening throughout this season. I mean, with all the stuff that's been happening around Riptide, you just can't help but think there's something going on with this team, and with the stuff I've read on Reddit and hearing Adam's side of what's going on as well, it starts to add up. So I can't help but there's just something going on with Team Riptide. Now, again, does that take away from the robot itself? No. I mean, they definitely are incredible there. But sportsmanship is definitely another important thing for, a sport like this, right? So there definitely is a sense that you just gotta be the better person while you have the sort of the capabilities as well. You can't just be capable and expect everyone to respect you like that. You have to put up a good manners, and the right mannerisms and all that stuff to make sure that you come out with that sort of pedigree, the integrity, to keep the integrity of the sport. There's a level of fun, but there's always that level of professionalism that has to take place as well. We can't forget about that. I mean, it is a sport after all, and you gotta show sportsmanship, right? So that is important to have that consistency throughout, not just here, of course, but all sports. The integrity is important, and I think you should put on that kind of front, and your skill alone, it's just not enough. Now, yeah, they're young and all that stuff. I do understand that they're all like in their early 20s, so they probably got that thing going on, right? That's that just sort of that rebellious thing, and I can kind of relate to that in a little bit, right? I used to be a lot more of an aggressive driver back in the day when I had a Toyota Celica and then the Toyota or the Lexus IS250. I was a lot aggressive back then of a driver on the freeway on the road, and as you get older, you just start to look back on them and you're just like, damn, man, how did you do that? At least for a lot of people anyway. Not everyone's the same, of course. I'm not gonna expect everyone to act like that, but it's what happens. You're young, you're full of energy, so stuff like that is bound to come out like that, and you gotta learn to take responsibility of that at your best, and hopefully stuff doesn't go too rough. But in the end, Riptide won it, but the sour taste definitely is still kind of there for Team Riptide. So hopefully, probably this season is going to be full of that for the rest of it. I think they're going to carry that same sort of like attitude and stuff like that throughout this season. The rest of the season, they're going to have that sort of attitude, more or less. But maybe at this point, this is a postseason, so for the team, so they have time to think about it. Maybe Team Riptide seen the episode, and maybe they look back on it, and maybe they can learn from something from that. I don't know. I'm just making assumptions anyway. But that's pretty much all I got before I go on a little rant about the, people, right, in general. But just wanted to say that this was a pretty good episode all in all. Controversies aside, we got some good destruction, we got some good fights. It definitely had a bit of everything, right? You had the unexpected, you have the destruction, you have raw destruction, but you just have also robots just putting up a fight with each other, going the full 3 minutes. It wasn't like a complete wash for all these fights or anything like that. You even had robots enduring all those big hits like Shatter and Jackpot, of course. So it was a great episode, I'd say. Good first half of the top 32. So I expect that sort of pedigree or that same quality of fights for the second half of the top 32. And again, I only have one wrong so far, but yeah, we'll see how many I get wrong for the second half of top 32. So anyways, that's all I got for this video for BattleBots so far anyway, and my thoughts and analysis, and of course predictions, checkup and everything, involving with the first half of the top 32 of World Championship 7. If anyone wants to sort of lay out their opinions about what I said in this video, go ahead and leave it down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out, and I do appreciate it. So I'm going to talk more BattleBots next week. I definitely look forward to that episode. And it's going to be robot fighting time once again. So thank you very much. Hope to see you all in the next one. Sean out.